So going back to the NFL a little bit, I've talked with a couple other guys about the combine, not a bunch,
Hmm.
um, but I kind of wanted to get your opinion on the NFL combine and its value for athletes, especially across multiple positions, and kind of what are your thoughts on its value for identifying talent and intangibles, I guess.
Yeah, it's a definitely multi-layered question.
Yeah,
I think it's like it became like almost like what's like the Greek. It's almost like the Olympics, right? For like
yeah,
team sports, right? So I think it's almost like an event in itself. And like you're saying, we have like a football combine prep, like course basically that kind of goes through the ins and outs of all that stuff.
oh,
But
really
like
cool.
it's like knowing the test, right? It's like knowing the answers to the test. Like everything's predetermined. You pretty much know what's going to happen. I got to run 40 yards. I got to do a pro agility. The L drill, three cones, all the same.
Yeah,
Um, the broad jump, I got to jump far. Like all this stuff, you already know what's going to happen. So it's just like knowing the answers to the test and obviously training for it. So as far as that, like it's fun for me. It's cool, but like as far as identifying talent, like that's a no whole nother thing, right? Because it's just a raw. It's like a physical test, right? It's just what are the raw physical specimens that you can provide for us, right? And then from there, that's just one level. And I'm sure they go on much deeper levels of obviously the X's and O's, and then the personality traits, and so many layers deep to that.
yeah, yeah, and there is like the part of the combine where we don't see about meetings with players behind the scenes. We always think that like um the example that always comes to my head was like Joey Bosa a couple years ago, or a lot more than a couple years ago at this point, but
Yeah.
he was like the projected number one pick. I bet my brother that he was gonna be number one pick, and then he ran the 40 and he ran like a 4.8, which was incredibly slow, like yeah, incredibly slow
Yeah,
compared to
incredibly
normal,
slow.
yeah, compared to like what we
280.
could do. Yeah, right. Yeah, 280, 6'5", and still runs a 4.8, and we think he's like, is he out of shape?
Watching on the
Um,
couch.
yeah, seriously. But it's like he dropped, I think, the eighth pick to the Chargers,
Hmm.
and we all think it's because of that 40. It could be because of he did shit in the meetings, or he had something else in the background, a lingering injury that we didn't know about, or half the times they meet the player's parents or they meet the player's extended family, and they're like, oh, we don't want that baggage or LeVar Ball kind of type situation around our facility.
Hmm.
So we don't really know about that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, so I was just kind of thinking about the combine and like, do you ever watch the Pro Bowl?
I never really watched the Pro Bowl. I mean, I kind of
No.
tune out. The only thing I remember is like when Taylor destroyed the punter, like stuff like that.
Yeah, just like the clips and stuff.
I never really watched the Pro Bowl too much, no.
Yeah, like the only because it just kind of the NFL combine, I don't always see its relevance for certain athletes. Having O linemen run a 40,
Hmm.
it's not realistic. Like we should see what we're doing in 5 yards, 10 yards, something like that. I think is more
Hmm.
realistic. Even D linemen versus O linemen should be doing different things. Even D tackles should be doing different things than the combo D and outside linebacker type flex position that exists now. There's so many blended positions as well. It's tricky. I get it.
I think last time we talked a little bit about the 40-yard dash as an example being unfair for linemen.
Yeah.
We talked about that, right? And so like we were kind of talking back as like, well, like every position has different demands as an athlete, right? So like when I make a program for for athletes, whether football or not, like we'll just use football since we're here, but like like in college they'll break them up into groups of like skill guys, so those are your receivers, DBs, safeties, whatever,
Yeah.
combos, which is like your tight ends, linebackers, and then your big guys, which is like offensive line, defensive line, or any bigger type of guys, right? Like those three categories. And so we'll just talk about linemen since this is lineman football.
Yeah.
Is like linemen, like their first priority, number one, I think we talked about that, is like, so their number one priority for me, in my opinion, and like just from what the physical demand is of their sport for them to compete, is having maximal strength, right? Because like you're a 300-pound dude, there's a 300-pound dude in front of you. You typically only go 2 feet before you smash into somebody, right?
Mhm.
And then it's pretty much maximal strength, like you're trying to overpower and manhandle somebody. Obviously, you have to be athletic and move laterally and do other things, but like max strength is a very big component about being a lineman, right? And then like that's priority number one. They have to get their strength up. Two would be like maybe power, and then three would be like speed, right?
Hmm.
So like those might be like the hierarchy of just the raw physical capabilities. Versus like take the opposite of like that versus the DB, right? Their number one thing is going to be like speed, right? Like that's their number
Yeah.
one priority. So it's just basically like the opposite of lineman. And max strength is it's important for them, but it's lesser of a priority than the speed is.
Yeah.
So, like I think bringing this back to the combine that you're talking about really quick is like, so now when these guys are doing the combine, like yeah, like the 40-yard dash is a disadvantage for the lineman, but their strength is an advantage for the bench press, like
Hmm.
example, right? Even though the 225, that's not really a test measure, but that's one other topic that we don't have to talk about.
Yeah.
Versus like, but taking that same, standard, right? But like, it's not really fair then for corners and receivers to bench press than it is for, I mean, because that's a bad spot for them than it is for like the 40-yard dash. That's their strength. So it's like it kind of balances out a little bit based on that.
Yeah, that is always the one thing when people talk about like why are linemen doing 40s and they're like, well, why is a DB doing 225 on bench? So I do get it. The thing though is I think at least with linemen that lines are starting to get blurred because the position is definitely evolving where speed is definitely seen more of an asset than it used to be. At least with a lot of schemes now are going towards college style offenses, run offenses where there's a lot more speed. So the
Mm-hmm.
lines are definitely getting blurred at that end at least, and there's more play on angles and body position. And again, I didn't watch football in the '90s because I was 3 years old, so I don't really know a lot about it. But I'm assuming back then that yeah, number one was power and strength, and yeah, I don't really know nowadays about what is the order they put them in as far as you know. Is it better to have strong hands or quick hands? You know, that's one thing I don't know. I don't, I would
I
love to
mean,
ask the Charles Bentley if he'd
yeah,
return my Instagram DMs. Like,
let me know.
yeah,
Well, like you're saying, like it's probably context, right? It's probably need both. Because if you have quick hands, but then you hit and you collapse, right? Like
yeah,
what's the point of that? Versus like if you have slow and strong hands, but you can't get there quick enough, then you just get swatted out of the way. So it's like
exactly,
it's always like context, right? This person might need speed, this person might need strength, right? It's just not a matter of what's better. It's just what do you need.
exactly.